What's going on, collectors? This is Parlay J here with you today. And on today's episode, we are going to talk about 4 cards that you should keep an eye on going into the MLB playoffs this season. Now, as I make this video, we are on the brink of the beginning of the division series round of the playoffs. We just had a really exciting round of the first ever expanded wildcard playoffs, which I myself was a little skeptical about because I am a baseball purist and I saw it as letting too many teams in and making it a little too wild and raucous and maybe something that just wasn't going to work out for the best. But what it turned out to be was actually really, really exciting, and we got to see a lot of teams get in and have a chance that maybe otherwise wouldn't have, and it didn't turn out to be a bad thing. I think it turned out to be a good thing. And it was definitely interesting in terms of how it applied to baseball card player values, because now you've got that whole playoff jump aspect to more cards than typically it would apply to in the past. Although because the wildcard series was so short and it was best of 3, it didn't give enough time for a lot of players to move around in a big way. But nonetheless, it was a great time. It's always a good time to be a baseball fan and always a good time to be a collector like you and I. So what I want to focus on today is 4 very specific cards, not necessarily players, but they're specific cards as well that I am keeping an eye on, and I want you to keep an eye on as well, because I think there is a good possibility that some of them you could still buy low and could still run up for that big playoff boost value. And when you think of playoff boost value in most recent history, I mentioned this on a video that I made last year, the Jose Altuve walk-off home run in the ALCS was an immense value for his card. His rookie card absolutely went crazy after he did that and he ripped off the shirt, and that was before the whole controversy. But nonetheless, a playoff performance like that for a perennial player or a player who is young and up and coming can be substantial when it comes to card values. Now, that's not to say that any player, even if they're a middle of the road mediocre player, if they have a hot playoffs, their card could rise too. But what we tend to see is the bigger spikes come with the real solid blue chip players or the up and coming rookies that people are just waiting to break out. So I've got 4, again, that I want to throw out at you guys for you to keep an eye on, do your due diligence on as well. I think the first one is probably not going to surprise you. So number 1 is our good friend and the hottest player this season, Fernando Tatis Jr. Now, I know what you're thinking, Fernando Tatis Jr., how can you be recommending him in any way as a buy at this point when his card values have skyrocketed so much? We'll take into consideration 2 things. His base Topps and base Topps Chrome rookie card was really the cards that benefit and made up with sustained value over the course of the year. Even when he went into a little bit of a slump, we did see a little of a decline after that monstrous run-up that we saw mid-season, but they have stayed the course pretty much. And now that we see Tatis making it through the first round of the playoffs and playing well, there's definitely room not only for those cards to potentially grow even more, but now you want to look to some of his secondary cards. And one of those cards that made a run-up that a lot of YouTubers made recommendations on during the season was his Topps Complete Set card. That card ran up all the way from around probably $30 or so for a PSA 10 at the beginning of the season. It peaked out at, I want to say it was about $100, maybe a little over $100 a card for a PSA 10. And that's a card that you can get in the factory set, which typically does not increase in value much because it's so readily available. Now, that's not to say that it couldn't increase in value, it sure did. It has receded since then. But why am I talking about this? Because that's not the card that I'm recommending, nor is the base card for the Topps or the Chrome the card that I'm recommending. The card that I'm recommending is Fernando Tatis Jr.'s 2019 Topps Update 1984 Throwback card in a PSA 10. Now, the throwback card is the one that looks exactly like the card design that was out in 1984. Now, what the throwback rookie card is every 35 years, Topps takes the design on the card that existed 35 years prior. So in 2019, it was the 1984 design. In 2020, it was the 1985 design, and so on. So the 1984 throwback rookie card has a lot of cool factor to it. Two reasons. One, because it's unique and it's more rare than its regular base card. However, it is definitely a desirable card because number two, that throwback design appeals to two different types of collectors. One, it appeals to the older collector who remembers those 1984 cards that they collected, and they really, really like the design and seeing that with a modern player on it. And it appeals to the more modern and younger collector who looks at it as a rarer, different type of variant card that's cool for them to collect. So it's got broad appeal, and there's varying opinions on it. Now, the fact of it being rarer is the reason why I'm suggesting it here. When you look at PSA's population on this card versus the 2019 Topps base card, a PSA 10 of the Topps base number 419 Tatis rookie card has a population of over 8,000. That's a lot of cards in a PSA 10. So at some point, saturation starts to set in, but that's a high population. Now, the population of PSA 10s for this 1984 Topps Update throwback card, as of this video, 109. That is the main reason why I suggest getting on this card now. There are not that many out there in a PSA 10, and when Fernando Tatis, if and when Fernando Tatis pops off in the playoffs, and if the Padres really do go all the way, and let's say Fernando Tatis becomes the MVP like everybody's kind of seen him act as all season long, that is a card that is going to become very desirable because it's in low supply and it's got great appeal. And so you want to be prepared to have that card. And that's why I am recommending that particular Fernando Tatis rookie card in the hopes that he progresses with the Padres through to the playoffs. That's a team that I'm definitely watching because I am so intrigued by them that they've made it this far this year. A really exciting team to watch. Now, the second card is of a player on the Yankees that you know very well, Gleyber Torres. So Gleyber Torres really had a lot of pressure on his shoulders coming into this season, coming off such a hot year last year, and he just did not deliver. There was an injury, but we're not sure if that was the reason why. Was it the short season? Because by all means, this entire season is the equivalent of the amount of time that somebody would typically slump in a regular season. A guy like Mark Teixeira, for example, would take like the entire first half before he heated up. So in this season, that's the entire year, and people chalk that up to, oh, maybe he's finished. I don't buy that on Gleyber Torres at all, but it's just things that go through people's heads and the media kind of expands upon that. But there are a lot of Gleyber Torres rookies out there, and so this is a very specific one that I'm recommending, where when you see it graded on a PSA slab, on the top of the slab, they say the variation of the card, and this one will say Pinstripe Jersey. Now, multiple variations of his card in that year look almost identical, but they're actually slightly different. So Pinstripe Jersey, which is number US 200, and the US represents update set. Now, a PSA 10 for this card has been hovering around $80 to $90 a pop. And there's a good side and a bad side to this card in particular. One, it's more affordable, because Gleyber's really sought after card is his horizontal super short print card, which had skyrocketed last year and is very, very high in a PSA 10 at this point as well. But this card is a little more within reach. The downside is that it's got a really high population. There's about 9,000 out there that are graded in general, and a little over 6,000 of them at this point are PSA 10s. Now, it's not quite as much as the Fernando Tatis cards that I just talked about, but it's still getting up there, and it's a common variation of the card, and that could adversely impact it. However, if a guy like Gleyber Torres really pops off in the playoffs and he's on the Yankees. So any Yankee who has a lot of fanfare, who's young like him, who's proven that he could be really an amazing player based on his stats last year, has the opportunity to really explode if he gets hot. And so at this price point of under $100, I like this card over other variations. Now, by all means, if you're a hardcore investor and you really have the money to spend and you don't mind buying a little bit higher, the card that you want to go for is his super short print. It's the horizontal version of the card as opposed to the vertical one, which is one we're talking about right now. Now, this Pinstripe Jersey card, very easy to confuse with the Gleyber Torres variation that was in the complete set that year, that's known as Looking Up. So again, when you look at the slab of both of these cards on a PSA graded card, it will say which variation it is, and it'll have that text printed as Looking Up or Pinstripe Jersey. And if you look at those two cards side by side, they are really hard to tell apart. So you have to make sure that you're looking at the right card from the right set. Now, if you really want the holy grail, then what you want is his Topps Chrome Sapphire super short print. And that card, you're talking over $1,000, depending on the grade and whether it's graded or raw. But the Sapphire card, one of my favorites, one of the most beautiful, and one of the hardest to get because it's an online release only, is absolutely the card that you want to go after if you're a premium collector. So again, with these three cards, I remember as I was first trying to sort out in my head like which Gleyber Torres rookie card to go after when I started collecting his, they were kind of tricky to figure out which one came first, which one was more valuable, which one had more appeal. So just to help debunk some of the misunderstandings around the Gleyber Torres cards of 2018, here's the order that they came out in and which are seen as a little bit more valuable than others. The super short print came out in June of 2018 and was only available in packs. And that was what made it the rarest and the most desirable card. It was the first one that was printed, a true rookie card of Gleyber in the top set. And so that is your go-to choice if you're a premium investor. It is the most rare and the most desirable of the base Gleyber Torres cards in the Topps series. The second card that came out in chronological order was the Topps 2018 Complete Set card. And that's the one that I'm not recommending. That's the one called Looking Up. It came out in July of 2018. As we said before, the Topps Complete Set are typically looked at as the least valuable card because they had higher print runs. However, looking back in 2018 at this point from where I stand in 2020, although it's not a complete guarantee that that particular card was overprinted as Topps Complete Sets typically were up until that point. And the third card that came out is the one that I'm recommending now, which is the Topps Update Pinstripe Jersey. It came out in October of 2018. And that's the card that I'm suggesting you keep an eye on and maybe invest in a little bit at a price point, again, of about $80, $90 or so for a PSA 10. It's a good opportunity to invest in it now in hopes that Gleyber does have a solid postseason. All right, so card number 3. I'm gonna go a little obscure with this one and take a shot at a lower tier player that I think might bust out in the playoffs based on his play this season. And that's Arazarinia on the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, Arazarinia was acquired by the Rays in the beginning part of the year in 2020 from the Cardinals. Him along with Jose Martinez were traded for pitcher Matthew Liberatore. And ever since Arazarinia became a member of the Rays and got called up this season, he has been playing exceedingly well, and I think quite under the radar. Now, I think he got that opportunity because of the nagging injuries that Austin Meadows had this year. He started the season with an injury, came back, and then went back on the DL, and we're waiting for him to come back in the playoffs with the Rays. It may or may not happen, but Arazarinia has seized that opportunity and has proven that he could really lead that team. In 2020, he hit 7 homers with just over 60 at-bats, and his batting average stood at .281, and his OPS over 1,000. This is a guy who bats in the 3 spot in a lineup of players that don't have giant names, but they're doing really well complementing each other. And so for when Austin Meadows, if he does come back, you add him to the top of that order, that's gonna make for Arazarinia to get RBIs, depending on how that lineup slides around. So Arazarinia so far, as of this recording in the playoffs, he's 4 for 8. He's got a triple, a double, and a bunch of singles. And he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on. Now, the specific card that I'm recommending of Arazarinia is his 2020 Topps Chrome Auto card. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can I get a good deal if it's an auto and a Topps Chrome? And I'm actually gonna go one step further, and I'm gonna say if you can get an orange or a gold variant of this card, that is a solid card to stock up on the chance that Arazarinia keeps up this play and really leads his team deep into the playoffs. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can I get a rookie, an auto, and a parallel in such a low numbered color for an affordable price that's worthwhile investing in? Now for this, I'm gonna recommend the raw card rather than the graded card. And if you can pick the right raw cards that look like they're in very good condition and can possibly grade out as a 10, if you send them in, you can actually pick up an Arazarinia auto in an orange or a gold, which means that they're numbered either out of 25 or 50 for around $50 to $80. Now that's a pretty good opportunity to invest in a player. Typically, if I buy raw cards, I do like them to be under $50, but for a guy who's shown enough this season to warrant his card raising in price a bit, and for you to be able to go a little more premium by getting an auto, by getting a parallel that's a low number, and still keeping it under the $100 mark, as long as you have a keen eye on how to spot PSA 10s, you can really turn this one into a good selling opportunity. Now, the downside is, and I will do another video on this, PSA's turnaround times have been long. So it really depends on if the Rays go all the way through to the series or not. If they get knocked out this round, it's going to be hard for Arazarinia's card value to increase. If they continue on through and let's say they win and Arazarinia continues doing well, I think this is a good value card. And I also see him as a good value in the long term because the Rays have really put things together. They're that young team that's really growing up together in a big way. And Arazarinia could stick around as being a real focal point of it next year and the following year. So if you're getting in now, it gives you that opportunity, even if they don't go all the way this year, for next year to be in a good position to get some value. All right, and my fourth and final card to watch is the 2018 Topps Chrome Sapphire Walker Buehler card. Now I know what you're thinking. He's a pitcher. Pitcher cards don't go over well with collectors. However, if you are able to nab the top 2-3 starters in the entire playoffs that make it to the World Series and you get them low, their card values will take a jump. Now, I wanted to recommend Clayton Kershaw as a rookie. I've been tracking his rookie cards all year long and from last season. Kershaw was a guy that we thought he was starting to show signs of wear and tear. We thought maybe he was over the hill, maybe he was done. But if you watched his last playoff game, he was in charge. And his card has accurately reflected that value. His PSA 10 rookie is up to about $600 or so. But Walker Buehler is a really intriguing option. He's the #2 starter on that team. I look at him actually as the #1 starter if and when Clayton Kershaw gets injured again. But Buehler's card values had suffered a bit this year because he started out the season pretty cold. He battled blisters and injuries throughout the year. He came back and toward the end of the season, we started seeing him pick up. And then in his playoff appearance, he was strong. And now he's going to continue on being the #2 starter on a very potent Dodgers lineup who really need to win now. They've been the team that was picked to win forever and they haven't done it. So now is the time. And so that's the reason why I'm not just recommending Walker Buehler rookie cards from 2018, I'm recommending his Topps Chrome Sapphire card. Guys, his last sale on eBay, as of this video, Topps Chrome Sapphire raw sold for $61. And it wasn't a card that had known defects or looked bad. It looked like it was in very good shape. $61 for a key player rookie Topps Chrome Sapphire. That is something that I would jump all over. Now, if you grade that card out and it does get a 10, you've already increased your value probably 3, 4, maybe even 5 times that potentially, depending on where the value of his card goes. Now, again, as a starters, it's hard to retain their value because pitchers don't get love. But when you become an elite starter, that's when you start getting more attention. And Walker Buehler is the kind of guy that's flashed like he could become an elite type of player. Obviously, he needs to prove that out consistently over a couple of years first. But he is a guy that I would jump in on now. And if you don't go for the Sapphire card, I would consider going for his Topps Chrome Auto card in a PSA 10, and that's numbered RA-WB, WB for Walker Buehler. That card could be had for a little over $100 right now, and that's a great buy. The $100 mark for a PSA 10 card, especially if it's a top tier player, is usually where I look to try to figure out whether or not I'm going to continue investing in a card. And so to see a guy like Walker Buehler at a time like this, before his next start, have a card value around the $100 mark with an autograph on it, I think that's a great opportunity to go in on it. Now, I know, again, you might be a little skeptical. Walker Buehler started out the season a little cool, but look at his 2020 final season stats. The man posted a whip of under 1 still, and that's in a year where people said he was not pitching like himself and he was a little off his game. His whip was .95 and his ERA was in the mid-3s. He only had 1 win, but personally, I'm not a wins and losses guy. I'm more of a whip ERA guy because that shows how a particular pitcher really stands up to opposing bats. The wins and losses have a lot of variables there. So again, Walker Buehler, he is a guy that I'm big on, and I definitely think he's someone that you should keep an eye on into this playoff series. So guys, those are my 4 players to watch heading into the division series, which as of this recording starts on Monday. So I hope you take this information, do your own research. If it works for you, definitely go out and try to invest in some of these players. If not, sit back, watch it play out. Maybe I'm wrong on some, maybe I'm right on some, who knows? But I'm sharing with you my strategies, and so you take that information and process it and apply it as you see fit. All right, guys, so thanks again. Enjoy the playoffs. As a baseball fan, we are all loving this. I'm gonna hang on to it and enjoy every last minute of it. So thanks again, guys, for watching. Please comment down below, like and subscribe, hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate everybody that subscribes and comments, and always remember that I reply to every single comment that I see. I love the conversation, and we are embarking upon 500 subscribers, everybody. That's awesome. To me, that's amazing. So thank you all for those that are already subscribed. If you're not subscribed, please consider smashing that like and subscribe button to get more videos like this. So thanks again, guys. And as always, it's your boy, Parlay J. Take care, spike your hair. See you next time.